Good morning. Welcome to the Celtic Way Morning Briefing Live. I'm Tony Haggerty at Haggerty10 on the Twitter handle, as you all know by now, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Ryan McGinlay at the Ryan McGinlay on the Twitter handle. It's Thursday, June the 29th. How are you, Ryan? You all good?
Doing well. I missed not being on the briefing yesterday. I'm kind of used to doing it most days. So when you're not on it, it gives you a wee break. But at the same time, you enjoy the sort of habit that goes along with it. So yeah. But I'm doing good. Thanks.
Do you miss speaking to the general public at large, did you? Your newfound fan base?
Yeah, the fan days. No, I enjoy speaking to the community about all things Celtic. It becomes habit at 10 o'clock to come in and talk about Celtic. So without it for a day, it gives you that break. But at the same time, I'm happy to be back.
Tell the truth, it's your old dad's company you missed, wasn't it, really?
Oh, without a doubt, Tony, without a doubt.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, there you go. Well, as we do every day, we say thank you to everybody that's tuning in, to all our subscribers. And if you haven't subscribed, then we direct you to the ticker tape running along the bottom. And we ask you to subscribe to the Celtic Way website and support top quality football journalism covering the club you love. Myself, Ryan there, and Aidan McDonald endeavour to provide that for you, as well as lots of wonderful contributors like Kevin McKenna, Alan Morrison, Ducal James. And all you do, click that button, guys, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. That's www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. And a wee bit of breaking news, Ryan, just before we came on air. Wolves have announced that they're pulling out of the South Korea and Japan tour, and the clash against Celtic is off, isn't it?
Mhm. Yeah, Wolves have pulled out, and so have Roma as well. We're still waiting to hear proper confirmation from Celtic about what their plans will be going forward. But as it stands, they won't be playing Wolves in South Korea, which is a blow to all the South Korean fans and to Hyungju Oh as well, who was really looking forward to that friendly in Korea. We'll see. We'll see if there is a replacement lined up. Maybe Ki Sung Young's team will come in and sort of save the day. Maybe. But at this moment in time, it looks as if Celtic have a free space in their diary because of the cancellation of the Wolves game.
It also begs the question, Ryan, will Celtic go ahead and go on tour?
It's a very interesting one because they've got a space between because the two Japanese games are first against Gamba Osaka or Yokohama F Marinos and then Gamba Osaka, and then there's a couple of days. And then they're going to South Korea, or they were going to South Korea to play Wolves. Be interesting to see if they do manage to get a date sort of rearranged with maybe a Korean club over there, or somebody comes in at late notice. But after that, then there's a fair break between then and the Atletico Bilbao game. So I think they need to arrange something in the meantime. But who that is, it remains to be seen.
Yeah, so we'll keep our eye on that, and we'll keep our eye on anything official from Celtic. We'll cover it on the channel if Celtic are going to go on the Japan and South Korea tour. It was kind of carved in stone, but there's a curveball being thrown in this morning by Wolverhampton Wanderers, and we'll see if Celtic are going to keep up their end of the bargain. Guys, we're also going to throw open to yourselves. Get your questions coming in for myself and Ryan. We'll have a wee Q&A session, and you can be the stars of the show if you're fed up listening to the dulcet tones of myself, or even more dulcet tones of young Ryan there. You can throw some questions in, and we'll read them out and attempt and endeavour to answer them. So get your questions coming in. But yeah, that's it's a strange one to begin with, Ryan. With that leg of the tour now, is it possible maybe just to do the Japanese leg of the tour and maybe pull out of the South Korean part? Because as you say, those two friendlies have been arranged with Yokohama F Marinos and Gamba Osaka.
You just wonder what sort of way Celtic will operate here, because it was good to have both nations represented with regards to
Yes.
Japan and then South Korea. It would be good to sort of expand our markets. Brendan Rodgers in his first interview said he wanted the brand of Celtic to go to Japan and South Korea respectively. So it will be interesting to see what way Celtic go. Maybe they might get another game with a Japanese team. They might elongate their time in Japan. I don't know what the script is with regards to Vissel Kobe's the way their season is running. But if they could get a game sorted with them, I think that would be an absolute no-brainer. Kyogo and Kobayashi's former team, there would be a lot of shared interest between the two sides, I would say. But it's still early days. We're still waiting to hear official confirmation from Celtic that game is cancelled, even though we have heard that from the Wolves side of things. It'd be a bit awkward if only one side was to confirm that the game wasn't happening. So yeah, it's early days, but we'll see what happens. It's very much a watch this space in terms of this game and in terms of this this scheduling for this time of game.
So we shall keep our eyes and ears peeled on that one to see if there's any breaking news and developments on that as we go along. You're attached to social media as we speak, Ryan, and you'll get the notifications if Celtic actually say anything at all about this. Now, Ryan, I believe you spoke to an Australian journalist about Marco Tilio. I might be speaking to somebody as well about Tilio as a player, but that seems to be going ahead. All systems go on that. Players agreed personal terms, and it's just a question of when Celtic are going to announce it. A fee of about $1.5 million's been spoken about, stuff like that. So he looks to be a player that's also going to come into Celtic hot on the heels of Odin Thiago home.
Yeah, and you can find that video that I did with Sasha Pisani on the YouTube channel. If you go into the videos section of the channel page, it was a really good sort of sit down interview with an Australian journalist who obviously knows what he's talking about. He actually works for the A-League, so he knows exactly what Marco Tilio has to offer. A very, very exciting young talent, 21 years old, but he's got plenty of goals and assists to his name. Sasha was saying that he is ready to take that next step up into the Scottish game and make a move into the first team straight away. They wouldn't be coming in as a development sign. Yes, you can develop him along the way, but he's coming in to play in the first team right now. Sasha presumes or expects, and he's made appearances for Australia both in the Olympics and for the senior national team. So he's got plenty of experience, despite being a 21-year-old, which is really good about Odin Thiago home as well as Tilio when Tilio gets announced, because the two of them have played a lot of senior football, despite the fact that they're both 20 and 21 respectively. They're young, but they're experienced in terms of senior football, which can only bode well in a Brendan Rodgers team going forward.
Yes, indeed. Now, I'll be speaking to somebody as well, just trying to arrange that to speak about his abilities as well, and I'll probably put that on the website at some point, but I'll direct you to that. First question coming in from Patrick McLaughlin: why can't we pay Hamilton £50 a game to take McCarthy away? I think that's a bit tongue-in-cheek there. I think McCarthy's just been one of those unlucky guys, hasn't he, Ryan? It's just not happened for him at Celtic, and he's just been plagued by injury as well, and just been, I wouldn't even say he's been in and out, it's just kind of sporadic appearances here and there, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the biggest contribution he's had was the sort of pass to Bernabei for that Yakimakis goal against St Johnstone. That was the one sort of moment of influence that he's had on the team in his 2 years at the club. And you've got to remember, we did give him a 4-year deal.
Yes.
4 years for a guy that's made what I'm guessing it's under 20 appearances in all competitions in the 2 years. It's definitely not over 20 or over 30, that's for sure. So you're just hoping he's not on a massive wage and he's not taking too much away from the club, because we're not getting our money's worth if that's the case. He's a player that I did have high hopes for. I remember tweeting out when we signed him that if he's fit and firing, he will absolutely walk this league. And that was half true because he can't run. So he kind of just saunters about the place when he's on the pitch. Yeah, it's been a weird signing. I think out of those two, it was a double transfer day when Joe Hart and James McCarthy were announced. I think only half of them have turned out to be good signings at the end of the day. But do you know, it's all about timing, because 5 or 6 years ago, I think he'd be a first pick in the Celtic team, especially under a Dyler or Rodgers the first time. But time's not been kind to James McCarthy. He just can't play the game that he used to play for Hamilton, Wigan and Everton. And he just doesn't have the legs anymore to do what he was able to do so well in the Premier League in years gone by.
I agree with that completely, and it's been a shame. Yeah, it's been unfortunate, but these things happen. Now, you mentioned Joe Hart there, and Jessica Hardy comes in with a question. Good morning to both of you guys. Good morning, Jessica. How are you? And her question is, do you agree that Celtic need a new goalkeeper? And personally, she thinks that Celtic should bring back Dembele to the club. He's on a free, and it'd be good to see him back at Celtic. We'll take the first part of that. A new goalkeeper, Ryan. Are you all for that?
I think it's got to be. I think that was one of the key areas when Postecoglou was still manager at the club. That you look down south, his first signing for Spurs is a new goalkeeper who can play with the ball at his feet. I think he spent more in the past 5 days than he did in 2 years at Celtic. I think it's something like £59 million he spent over the past 3 or 4 days. It just shows you the differences, the different landscape and the different money that these teams can play with. When compared to Celtic, it's a different world. But in terms of our position, yes, we do need a new goalkeeper. As much as Joe Hart's been a good signing, 36 going on to 37 years old, it's time for long-term planning. You don't want to get to the stage where we'll get really old goalkeepers and not have a long-term replacement ready to come in. In the comments, I'm just going to pull this comment up because I totally agree with this. Livakovic should be a person of interest to Celtic. Now he's getting linked with a £6 million move to Fiorentina. Celtic should be all over that if he is available. I've said it for years. Livakovic is a good young goalkeeper that can play with the ball at his feet. What is he, 25, 26?
Yes,
he's the Croatian national goalkeeper, and you would need to push the boat out. But Celtic pushed the boat out for Brendan Rodgers, and look where it got them. If you don't ask the question, then you'll never get an answer. So I would be, if Livakovic is available, then I would fling money at him to get him in the door. It's very much pie in the sky stuff, but he is a great goalkeeper and he would solve a lot of problems.
I've taught you well, young Jedi. Person of interest, tick. Ask the question, tick. Yes, my job's done here, guys. I'll just retire gracefully. Marvellous. Indeed. No, I couldn't agree more. If you can get a goalkeeper of that quality, especially a Croatian international, but did well with Croatian internationals before, Josip Juranovic being that Croatian international that I'm alluding to. So, yeah, I think Celtic should ask that question because he does become a person of interest, as you say. And with Rodgers coming in and supposed new budgets, he falls within the price range, surely, at £6 million. Well, you should be asking the question. Take the second part of Jessica's question. Dembele coming back for you. I can see Aidan somewhere in the background doing cartwheels in his living room saying, yes, Jessica, yes, all on board with that. He's on the Dembele bus coming back. What about yourself? Too much water under that bridge? Bridge is burnt.
The thing is, you would say that, but then Peter Lawwell's the chairman of Celtic and he's working with Brendan Rodgers, who's the Celtic manager. That's not a sentence I thought I would be saying since sort of 2019 when Peter Lawwell was still the chief executive and Brendan Rodgers had left the building after hearing numerous reports of fallouts between the two men respectively. You know, you can never say never. He's a free agent. He's not got a club at this point in time, which surprises me because I think there's a lot of teams, especially down south, that could do with a player like Dembele in their team. I think he's just been very unlucky with his timing. He had that spell in Atletico Madrid where, yes, he won the league, but I don't even think he scored for them. I remember he collapsed as well in training, so it was a bit of an unlucky spell for him. Yeah, he's a free agent, but I think, I mean, you don't want to contradict yourself and say it's never as good the second time because Celtic could just get a manager through the door and it's his second time.
Yes,
but
exactly.
I think there's still too much animosity between Brendan Rodgers and Dembele. Remember how public that was when he left the club? The Twitter. There was Twitter messages or there was tweets that went out when he left, and then there was more tweets when Brendan Rodgers left the club, as if to say, "I told you so," to sort of allude to the fact that it was Brendan Rodgers that was the problem at the time. Now, we don't know the whole story. You'll hear three versions. You'll hear Dembele's version, Rodgers' version, and the truth, which is somewhere in the middle. But if you look at it in the face of it, he's a good striker. I would say the same for Edward. I think Edward's a bit unfancied at Crystal Palace as well. But in terms of, so maybe it's a wee bit different for players. You don't really go back the second time; it's never as good. As much as I absolutely loved Dembele's 2 seasons at the club, maybe it's better we work on some younger strikers, because they're the ones that are going to make his money in a couple of years' time. Dembele's 26, 27. If you were needing to get a profit on him, you need to sell him within like a year or two.
But the words free agent speak volumes, don't they, in that kind of particular sense? He's a quality footballer. He knows where the back of the net is.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing. He's a free
he's
agent.
Worked under Rodgers before.
He's a free agent, but it's the wages that I'd be thinking of as well. You need to break the wage structure in order to get him back in, because I'm sure he would have been on a pretty penny in France for Lyon. So I don't think he'd be wanting to come back here for cheap.
Yeah,
it's very much the longer he goes without a club, the more the rumours will sort of swirl with regards to Dembele. But I think for what's best for him, I'd like to see him. If he wasn't to come back to Celtic, I'd like to see him take on the Premier League, because I think he'd be perfect down there.
Okay, it remains to be seen what will happen to Dembele, but I know young Aiden's got his fingers and toes crossed that it materialises, so we'll see what happens. Alan Wood's question, there you go, just lets us know that it's a question because he wrote the word question. When will Celtic start spending proper money that they keep hearing about? All sorts of figures being bandied about in all sorts of media reports. Somewhere between 30 and 35 million. Celtic will spend what they spend. Ryan, I'm not saying I don't pay too much attention to it. Nobody will really know the true figures except those money men at Celtic and Brendan Rodgers. So what do you think? When do you think Celtic will start spending this proper money?
I just wonder if Celtic have their eye on the under-21 championships at this moment in time. Maybe they're waiting until that's concluded before they start to make their bigger moves in the transfer window. I know there's a couple of players that Celtic have been linked with in the past that are playing in the under-21s, especially I think it is Jashari that plays for the Switzerland under-21s, a holding midfielder that Celtic have been linked with previously in the past. I don't know, maybe they're waiting until the end of that tournament before assessing their options and spending big. You've got to remember the transfer window's just open and Celtic don't need to negotiate any Champions League qualifiers. Yes, there is a rush to get players in the door for pre-season, etc., but there's not a massive rush because we've still got a lot of time before our friendlies and then the start of the season. And as I said before, we're straight into the group stages, so we can assess the market and then buy accordingly. I don't want us rushing into signings and then getting the wrong deals. I'd much rather we take our time and get the right people in, because then it shows. Because the longer it takes, the more that you think Brendan Rodgers will be getting backed, because he'll have his own men through the door and he'll have scouted these players along with the scouting committee. So yeah, I would rather the club take their time. We've got a manager in place. Let's see how he assesses the current squad he's got, and then we'll make our moves accordingly.
Pat Laugh comes in and says, "Does the transfer window not officially open on Saturday?" Transfer window's open, to my knowledge, Ryan, is it not?
Yeah, I think Arsenal know all about the fact that the transfer window's open. I think they've spent most of their budget in the past 3 or 4 days, same as Spurs. So I think it just shows you the landscape is changing. Sort of deadline day isn't really such a thing anymore.
Yeah.
Teams now know that they need to do their business early in order to get the best sort of results. But at the same time, Celtic are getting their business done early, but they're also watching to see if they can maybe get any better moves later on, because a lot of players won't know what they're doing this summer. They need to understand their situation, and then Celtic can respond to that.
Scotland the Brave touches upon that point. He's got a question, told us first word question. Guys, do you ever fear Celtic are waiting to see what players they lose before they bring in 1 or 2 big hitters in of great quality? And he's talking about the 5 million plus signings. That's what he's talking about. Is that a fair comment, Ryan?
Well, yeah, I think in the past, we've seen in the past 2 years that we seem to know that players are leaving, but we'll bring in another player before the original player actually leaves. You look at the Juranovic. We all knew Juranovic was probably going to leave in the January transfer window, but we had Alistair Johnston through the door before that was even the case. So we knew we had these replacements. But I think it will continue to work like that because, as far as I know, there hasn't been any changes to the scouting system. Mark Lawwell's still at the club, therefore he will get replacements through the door before we sell our big players. So I think it'll just be a balance. It'll be 50-50. Once Celtic bring in players, you'll kind of know what players are going to leave. And that's the way a big club should run. You don't want to leave yourself shortchanged with regards to squad members. And I think the system in which Celtic are now working in is absolutely perfect.
I couldn't agree more. And Scotland the Brave comes back in, asks another question. He says, would you bring in Tierney on loan and play him at centre-back with Cameron Carter-Vickers, since he does well with Scotland there? He thinks that Johnston, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Tierney and Taylor is a solid back four, and he's all for that.
Tierney does have the ability to play as a centre-half. He is quite big for a full-back. He has played in the... He plays in the left side of the left centre half position for Scotland at times. He's got that versatility. I don't think Tierney will come back in the summer. I've got to be honest. I'm going to throw water on this flame just now. I've got to be honest. I think he'll either stay at Arsenal or he'll go to Aston Villa or Newcastle. In my opinion, Aston Villa because Emery signed him for Arsenal in the first place, and that would be a good move for him. He'd play every week, or Newcastle because it's Eddie Howe and it'd be closer to Scotland and the wages would be astronomical. But I think he'll be staying down south. I don't think he'll want to come up north just yet. I think he will play for Celtic in the future, maybe towards the end of his career, but I don't think it'll be now. Then again, I said Brendan Rodgers wouldn't come back straight away, and it only took him 4 years to come back. So you never know.
You never know. I know Kieran Tierney will play for Celtic again, whether it'll be on loan and a season-long loan next season or he wind up his career, then that remains to be seen. But
he'll be fighting with Robertson. He'll be fighting with Robertson for that left back spot because the two of them are desperate to play for Celtic. One of them hasn't. I know one of them was in the youth team and never made it because he got released and went to Queen's Park, etc. But the two of them, I wouldn't mind them fighting later on in their career if they both still had the legs to play the football that we played. Because that's the thing, could get to the age where they're not good enough to play for Celtic anymore just because of their age. But I would love to see Tierney, especially back in Celtic before the end of his career. But not anything down to sentimentality. If he was still able to do a job, then I'd be all for him coming back.
And Robert Highland coming in asking you a specific question, Ryan. How many holding midfielders do Celtic need?
2 or 3.
2 or 3?
Yeah, 2 of that's not a great...
Make up your mind there.
Yeah, I'm just the reason I said 3 just out of nowhere there was because Cal McGregor can play that position. It still remains to be seen where he is actually going to play next season because he played in a further forward role under Rodgers the first time.
Yep.
He has been playing a wee bit further forward as well for Scotland, I'm sure as well. I'm just thinking about that. Let me think. He does play a wee bit further forward for Scotland. I think Celtic need another holding midfielder. I think that's the position that they should go all out for and spend the big bucks for. I think he could that one player could be the difference between drawing and winning games in the Champions League because like I've said before, he puts out fires before the centre backs have even seen it. If you're able to get somebody like that can help us when another team is on a counter attack, maybe Celtic are going forward. And then we get dispossessed. You need that holding midfielder there to get rid of the danger before any more danger happens. I think if you spend a good 6-7 million on a holding midfielder who dominates, especially in Scotland and in Europe, then you'll make that money back tenfold.
A big guy, Ryan, is that what you're talking about? A big footballer, a big enforcer, someone who can stamp their authority on the game.
A destroyer.
That can play football, not necessarily a destroyer. But...
I think with players like Kante, that sort of hypothesis has been altered a wee bit because you don't need to be massive to be a sort of enforcer. If you can get around the ground. I mean, we do have Ismail Assoro coming back. I don't know how much he'll fit into the grand scheme of things. I think he'll be on his way out again. But there was high hope for Assoro that he would be that long-term sort of enforcer number 6. I think if you can get somebody that's maybe maybe not the size of Beaton, but in between Beaton and McGregor, that sort of 5'10", 5'11".
I just feel safer with a big guy there, Ryan. It's just me, just old school,
Look,
I think. But
when
I
Yama
think,
made us safe.
yeah, well, I think we need a bit of height. That's all I'm saying. Just bear with me on that. Martin O'Neill's team were full of big guys, weren't they? Big, imposing presences.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing about it was they were a team of football players. I've spoken to a couple of players who played in that team, and they said that's the thing. They were big guys. They were imposing, intimidating figures, but they could hold their own both domestically and in Europe. So that's just my thoughts on it. I think if we're going to sign a dominating midfielder, I'd like a bit of height, a bit of stature, a bit of presence, because we've got enough, we say small, but players that can play football and they're not massive. I think we have enough skillful players. So just for a layer of protection for me, Ryan, that was all. Maybe that's a kind of one-dimensional way of looking at it, but I just think it adds a bit of solidity to Celtic, because I think we've got some seriously good players in the squad, and we're only going to enhance that. So I just think that's maybe a key position or a priority. It would be for myself, but hey, Timonon comes in and says, on you go, sorry.
I think if you can get a hybrid of the two, then it's perfect. You get a silky sort of footballer that has still got a wee bit of height. That Jashari that I was talking about earlier that plays for Luzerne in Switzerland, he's 5'11", so that'd be the perfect sort of hybrid mix, because he'd still be of a height that he can get around the pitch without looking too immobile, but he's still a presence, and he's only 20 years old. I think Celtic should be pushing the boat out for a player like that.
And if we're doing more homework, he'll be on a list, won't he? He'll be a person of interest, and he might be somebody that they might ask the question of. You'd like to think so, wouldn't you?
That's why I was saying about the under-21s, because he's playing for Switzerland just now.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Go figure. It might be something in that too. And Timonon says, do we break the £9 million record fee this window, and in what position? You talk about the different landscapes. Damien Rice has just gone for 105 million. And it's frightening. And then Timonon's talking about the Celtic break the £9 million record signing fee for Edouard currently. But I mean, that is what you're up against, isn't it? Really, that's what you're competing against. But if they do break the £9 million record fee, then you'd like to think they'd be getting a player of some repute, wouldn't you? Edouard was great when he was there. I loved Edouard. Loved Dembele as well. Edouard, I was delighted to see coming on, and even for that price, I'm glad that Celtic didn't really balk at it. So, yeah, I'm all for that. If that's what it takes to take your club to the next level, without being reckless and silly about it, but if we're going to have to shatter the £9 million transfer record fee and bring in, an A-lister, somebody of top quality that will get you to that next step, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, me too. I think it will get broken in the next couple of years, but at the same time, I don't want us to break the record just for the sake of it. I think if a player is coming in, then you have to be a relative superstar to break that transfer fee. In my opinion, you need to come in and really hit the ground running. I mean, you've even seen with Bernabei, there was a bit of a financial outlay in Bernabei in 3.75 million, and he's not delivered the goods. There's still hope for him because he has I think he has all the attributes to be a traditional fullback rather than a inverted fullback, which may suit under Brendan Rodgers' system. But I think if Celtic are going to spend that amount of outlay on a player, they need to make sure that he is going to make the difference. In domestic, it's an absolute given. They have to be running games and making the difference in Europe, because at the end of the day, those £9-10 million players, they'll be the difference. They're the superstars for us.
Yeah, they have to be the real deal, Ryan. I mean, the finished article, not projects, not young guys who are on the way up. I'm talking about Celtic. If they're going to splash out that kind of outlay, it has to be the finished article, or more or less the finished article, as you say, the one that will get you vital away points in Europe, get you vital goals in Europe, and game changers, match winners, or potential match winners. So that's what I'm talking about as well. Yeah, definitely agree with that. Now Kaiser comes in. Morning, Kaiser. He's asking the question: who are the real danger players subject to transfers in his opinion, O'Reilly, Hatate, Kyogo, Maeda, Abada and Jota, if the big money bids come in for those players, then Celtic have to look at it seriously. Somebody has to want them, Kaiser, and somebody has to ask you the question to get you around the table. And at the moment, there's all sorts of speculation and conjecture about Tottenham coming back for the likes of Hatate, Kyogo, even Karen Carter-Vickers, who's got a mention. Jota's been linked with Benfica. They are all links. There's been no concrete bids. Abada's been linked with a move away because he's of a refusal to sign a new deal, but not sure how much truth there is in that. But these guys are all on long-term deals, so it's going to take a pretty penny to shift them. Celtic are in a good position with regards to that, Ryan, and kind of hold all the ace cards. If somebody comes in and wants them, then they're going to have to make a kind of offer that gets Celtic round the table. Now, I remember saying that about Josip Juranovic, and I said that when everybody was speculating wildly about his price, I said at the time, I took a lot of stick for it, but I still stand by it, that a bid of between, I think it was 10 and 12, but I said that between 10 and 12 got you a seat round the table when you were talking about Juranovic, because I think he was, 28 at the time, wasn't he, when he moved? So, turned out, what did he go for? 7.5, something like that?
7.5, 8 million, yeah.
8 million, yeah. So, Celtic sold him on to Union Berlin, so it wasn't far off kind of ballpark figure what I was talking about. Now, in order to get you around the table, then somebody will have to shell out lots of millions for Celtic, and if it's Premier League clubs, Sean Martin was always a favourite of adding the English Premier League tax, as he would call it, like extra VAT, he would call it like extra 5 million, slap it on, because English clubs have money to burn, and they're not shy in using it. So, yeah, I'm quite comfortable with the fact that all these players are on longer term deals, and I'm also even more comfortable that it will take quite a substantial bit of cash to prize any of Celtic's prize assets away from Celtic Park. I'm quite comfortable in the fact that I think a lot of them might want to stay for another crack at the Champions League group stages and work under Rodgers. This time next year might be a different ball game altogether. But if they go, then they will go for a pretty penny.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would also say we're in a really, really sort of formidable position as well, because you look at the fact that Brendan Rodgers is back. Brendan Rodgers wouldn't have come back if there weren't certain assurances that he would be getting back in the transfer window. That is even without players leaving. Now, if players are going to leave, then he's obviously been assured that the players coming in will be of similar standard or better. The club is in a far better place than where it was 4 or 5 years ago, and we were successful even then. You think now that they've got their act together with regards to the recruitment and the strategy surrounding that, it puts us in a really, really solid place, because we can look at these offers without needing to sell. We don't need to sell at this point in time. We know there's money coming due to the Champions League. We've got assets all over the park. We've got guys that we aren't even talking about who I think are assets, like Alistair Johnston. I think he could be one of the biggest assets, if not the biggest asset of them all. I think he's tailor-made for the Premier League. I think he'll be down there in the next 2 or 3 years, unfortunately. He's that good. He's just... I know already, but he's just... He gives me the Carter-Vickers vibes as well, that he strolls it in games. Like, they're not providing a lot of a challenge, and I think that's why the Champions League will be the making of him this season. We'll see how good he really is on that bigger stage. I know he done well in the World Cup, but we will see more of him at that elite level, playing against elite teams next season, which is great, and it will be great for his valuation as well. So yeah, we're in a really good place. I'm not worried about any bids that come through, because I know now. I think we've been given the assurances. We've got to trust that the recruitment strategy is there, it's set up, and if we lose players, then better players will come through the door, whether that be projects that will be better than the current players or just better players already.
I don't think Brendan Rodgers would come back to sanction any kind of fire sale, right?
Exactly.
Let's be honest. So I think the attraction in coming back was that a lot of these guys were tied up on long-term deals. He's watched them often enough to know that there is a good side there, and we keep talking about the sprinkling of Rodgers fairy dust with those, 5 million plus players, maybe even a a 10 million plus player if that's what Celtic want to do. Yeah, we accept there are wage structures and their financial parameters, but if you're going to try and make a fist of it in Europe, then you have to push that envelope, to the point where you're comfortable with it, and that it's not going to make a huge dent in anything that you do financially moving forward. But if you're going to tool up and you're going to get serious, then these are the issues that you have to take on board. Celtic may have to spend £10 million on a game-changing player, but he's going to have to be of the calibre that is top quality for that kind of financial outlay. They will bring in projects, I get that, but they will also bring in quality players for, value for money, basically, Ryan. That's what I'm saying. Kaiser coming back in here and saying he would sanction it and hand Brendan Rodgers every penny to improve the squad. Yeah, and I get that thought as well, Kaiser, that train of thought, but I just want Celtic to be prudent as well. I don't want them to be reckless, but I want them to be prudent, and I want them to do what they've been doing the past couple of years, because I think in terms of recruitment, they've pretty much nailed it. They've got it spot on. Now we want to take it to the next level and get a calibre of player in the squad and in the ranks who can make a valid contribution. And if that's the case, it could also be sold on for a healthy profit, because that's the model that has served Celtic well. And you tie them up on long-term deals, so you're protecting yourself in the process. And so, yeah, and Andrew Gilly, you're saying a 10 million player will want wages outside our current structure. Will they? I don't know. I'm just surmising that if that's what you're doing, and there's a kind of markets you're in, then you're going to have to play ball to a certain degree, Ryan.
Yeah, I think with regards to we need to bring in the real deal. I absolutely agree with that. But I also think that Celtic need to make sure that those real deal players can then be sold on for a profit as well. I think the real deal players, I think our version of a real deal would be the Premier League's version of a project. It's just the different landscapes that these teams are working in. If you can bring in a player that will dominate the domestic league, will do something in Europe and still be a project, still be 22, 23, if you spend 7-8 million like we did for Edward, yes, I know we didn't get the profits that we probably thought we would get with Edward. We get, 14 million or something like that, which is not bad considering he'd ran down his deal. To get 14 million off of that was pretty good. But if you buy somebody like that for 8-9 million and they do a couple of years, then you can sell them for 25, 30 million. You do that for 3 or 4 players, you'll be in a really, really good spot with regards to finances. You add that with the Champions League, all of a sudden Celtic are really, they already are in a really good place financially, but they could be even more so. These £2 million projects, they could be up to £5 million projects, because 5 million used to be a marquee signing for us. If they just become the normal, then the whole squad will improve because of that. It's just that progression. They need to stick to the transfer strategy. They need to be aggressive in the transfer market, as Postecoglou said before. That needs to still stay the same under Rodgers. If they keep to that plan, then I can't see why this team won't go places in Europe in the next couple of years.
K-Max coming in, the team is more important than the individual players. Rodgers inherits a very talented, well-organised team. As long as he doesn't start making major changes, then there's no need to worry about new stars. I agree with that to a certain extent, but you have to keep evolving as well.
Mm-hmm.
You have to keep freshening the team up. And I think an influx of new, and I'll put this in inverted commas, stars always helps. It's great for the dressing room. I just think, and if you bring in a marquee signing, that's even better for the dressing room, because everybody gets on board with it, manager, players, fans alike. So I've said before, I don't want Celtic to be reckless with their spending. I want them to continue to be prudent, and I want them to continue to do what they're doing, because it ain't really broke. I just think if we keep talking about this European level that Celtic want to reach, then you might have to accept the fact that you're going to have to go and shatter your record transfer fee for a player. If it's not this season, maybe the season that comes. But, and also you have a plethora of prized assets there. Maybe it is time to cash in on maybe one of them and that was what Ange Postecoglou warned in the AGM that time. Don't get attached, because he was telling you these guys have a shelf life. Little did you know he was talking about himself as well in the process.
I was thinking that there as well.
but that's neither here nor there. Don't fall in love. And I guess we've all learned lessons with that too, moving forward. But what we do know is we're in the hands of a capable manager who can get the best out of these guys who are currently dominating domestically. We now want to take it that step further. And in order to take it that step further, then you have to keep improving the quality of the squad, whether that be on younger projects, as you say, or marquee signings, then so be it. But Kirsty O'Connor saying that'll set us back, I think, Tony. What will set us back, Kirsty? What, improving the squad with a marquee signing? Not so sure. But keep doing what they're doing. And they have nailed it domestically for the past couple of years, certainly the past little while. We want to go and make an impression on Europe, because our record on that arena leaves a lot to be desired. So we shall see. Thiago Home has come in, Odin Thiago Home, and now it looks like Marco Tilio's coming in as well. They're young players, and from what we've seen, certainly their highlights reel, it is what it says in the tin, it's a highlights reel. So, no, Tony, mixing it up. Mixing what up, Kirsty? You need to come and tell me what I've said. Come back in and tell me what I've said about mixing it up. I just think that we have to keep evolving as a football club, Ryan. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, evolution and revolution. The two can go hand in hand. Absolutely. The Rodgers revolution can provoke an evolution of Celtic. I think it's got to be an evolution.
Yeah.
As much as we sorted the rebuild under Postecoglou, that was great. We brought in players that we knew were maybe only going to be there for a year or two to do a job. Juranovic, his age profile, he was 27 when he signed. We knew he'd only be around for a couple of years and maybe get a move. Same for Giakoumakis. You saw the start of that revolution or evolution of the team with regards to players like maybe less or so Kobayashi when he's a bit of a project, but younger players coming through the door that we can work on for a couple of years before selling on. Now, I'd like to see us litter the squad with some real quality. I think the people that we go for, maybe after Tilio, have to be players that will come into the first team straight away. We've got our 2 prospects for the year to maybe add another 1 or 2. But we've already got Odin Home, we've got Marco Tilio, who looks as if it's basically done. I know we keep on saying that, but you're just waiting on that announcement happening. Now I want to see us open the war chest and let's
open the checkbook. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I don't know even know if they still have checkbooks. Do they have them now? I don't know if they'll do online banking now, but yeah, I'd like to see us get some real quality. They can still be projects. They can still be the same age profile, 20, 21 years old. But I want to see some real prestige and pedigree coming through the door as well.
Yeah, without a doubt. Now, Kirsty O'Connor's elaborated scene, refreshing players and changing dressing room antics. That's fair enough.
I think it's constant.
Yeah, and also every new manager does that when they come in. It's a given that we're going to have to refresh the players, and some dressing room stuff will change. I think that's factual, and Brendan Rodgers will do it differently to Ange Postecoglou. They'll probably adopt a different system and philosophy of play. I think it's only natural. I know Celtic have had lots of success playing the Ange Postecoglou way, but you spoke about Alistair Johnson might revert back to our normal kind of fullback. I think that's fair to say. Same with Greg Taylor on the left as well, and maybe not so much inversion, but I don't think Brendan Rodgers is averse to playing with inverted fullbacks. You just might not see it as much and when he comes in, but that's not to say that he can't revert to it or go back to it. But I just think Celtic are evolving again. They've evolved under Ange Postecoglou. They're going to evolve again under Brendan Rodgers. Call it a revolution, and evolution, as you say, call it what you like. I've used those 2 words in newsletters and pieces that I've written so far. But I think, and I remember saying this to Postecoglou in Australia, and he agreed. He said, if you're going to act like a big club, and I keep talking about Celtic in the past couple of years, I've acted like a big club. They're constantly evolving, and that means refreshing your squad, refreshing tactics, refreshing your style of play. And Steve McGrory comes in, morning Steve, I'll just flick this up. It's only natural, it's progression. Astonished if Celtic don't lose at least one first team player this window, maybe one or two now, one or two in the winter window, and so forth, rather than 6 or 7 next summer, as long as we reinvest. That's what I'm talking about, Steve. That's exactly what I'm getting at, that you have to be ready for that kind of outcome, and you can't be having no fire sale, as I've said, and the manager wouldn't have came back if there was going to be this supposed fire sale of players. But players that go out will be replaced, and Andrew Gallia saying pragmatic Rodgers will evolve in a more defensive way.
That's the point I was going to make. I was going to make that Brendan Rodgers, in my lifetime of watching Celtic, he is the best manager for adapting in-game to situation. If there's one word that I could use to describe Brendan Rodgers, it's adaptable. With Postecoglou, when we knew we were in that working relationship with Postecoglou, you knew it was his way or the highway. He was going to play that style of play regardless. If it was Real Madrid or Dundee or whoever in the middle, it was always going to be that one style of play. He wasn't going to revert, or he wasn't going to change his style. With Rodgers, yes, there will be that 4-2-3-1, but he is adapting. He can adapt, and he can adapt to the squad. The squad will change. I'm sure one or two, maybe bigger names might leave in the summer.
Yeah,
because that's just normal. You're going to get that, but Celtic have to do that, or it'll become stale. There are negatives to keeping all your best players. We've seen that ourselves in the COVID season. Look what happened when you kept Ayer, Edward, Christie, and Cham, etc., all at the club. It festers. You've got to keep it fresh. You've got to keep this constant. It's a constant evolution. You've got to keep it going.
And you've got to know when to cash in on these assets. There's Kirsty coming back. I'm getting myself round to the idea of change. Maybe for me, it's still a bit raw. Brendan Rodgers being back and what have you, Tony. No problem, Kirsty. I wasn't taking issue with it. I just wanted a wee bit more guidance and explanation as to what you meant. You're allowed your opinion. I'm not picking holes in that. If that's what you think, so be it. It's everybody can feel free to have their say on this, but I quite like that, Kirsty, because that was actually an adult discussion where we both explained ourselves well. You know, it's not often you can get that, but you're allowed your opinion, Kirsty, and I hope you, like everyone else, enjoy the briefings and enjoy the fact that you can come on here and say what your thoughts are. I don't know who's right or who's wrong, Kirsty. All I'm talking about is I just think that Celtic have adopted a big club mentality the past few years, and I want them to see them continue down that route. That's where I'm going with that. And if it means losing players, like Steve said, maybe one or two, but replenishing it with others, then so be it. Kirsty said, thought you were slapping my knuckles very well. Kirsty, I'm incapable of doing that. If
Mr. Haggerty, those laws they're outlawed.
Yeah. If I did that, I'd burst it crying. That'd hurt you. You know what I mean? So, and to be fair, not that long ago, I went back to uni to study to be a teacher. Didn't like it. Ended up back as a football journalist. Stick to what I know best, or not what I know best, as many people would tell me. Stuck to the teaching, Haggerty. Yeah, there you go. We shall see what happens. Guys, that's been 50 minutes of a day when not much happened, but you got us through it with your questions. Hope myself and young Ryan have answered them honestly and humorously and as openly as we can. We like to do that, but we love the fact that you come in on days where we turn it over to you to be the stars and the Q&As, and we enjoy getting our teeth into everything Celtic. And Mr. Haggerty is a good one. I've never been called Mr. Haggerty in my life. In fact, I'll give you a quick story. I did my first what do you call it, placement down in Ayrshire, Ardrossan High School, and I was in about 10 minutes, and some people said, Mr. Haggerty, and he called me a rude name. And I was like, oh, well, there you go. That's just like 10 minutes. That was my introduction to it all. And I was kind of like, yeah, wonder if I can enjoy this, but that's why I'm back here, Ryan. But that was all. It took 10 minutes. I was standing in the kind of corridor, and I was telling people to get in line and stop acting the goat, all
So
that kind of stuff.
you're the headmaster of the Celtic briefing.
First time I got called Mr. Haggerty in my life, I didn't even like it. You know what I mean? It's followed by the expletives that followed, and I thought, I went, okay, you might be a sound judge of character, but that's no need for that kind of language. David Ferguson, it's Mr. Haggerty from now on. No, I don't want to be called Mr. Haggerty. Good old fashioned Tony will do. As I always say, as Jurgen Klopp nailed it when he was talking about people saying, oh, that Jose Mourinho, you're a special one. Not a special one, just a normal one. You know what I mean? And I like that. That's the way I've always been. A normal one, Ryan. No, maybe wasn't cut out to be a teacher. Thought I was. Passing on wisdom.
Tony Klopp has a ring to it as well. maybe that would be your manager name. Maybe that's that 4-4-2 that you're on about.
Tony Mourinho.
Antonio Mourinho.
I guess not. Cheeky buggers, listener, Tony. They were indeed, Kirsty. They were cheeky. Detention for Sean. No, Sean. As I say, I'm just not cut out to hand out stuff like that. Maybe I wasn't cut out to be a teacher in that sense, but there you go. Tony Klopp, there you go. Kaiser's up that.
You're educating all of us on a regular basis, so that's the main thing.
That's fair enough. To have somebody offering your seat in a bus train, Tony, almost died at the thought of how old that came. I'd give you my seat, Pete. You could have this seat, no problem at all. Yeah, Danny's got it. Too cool for school. I love that, Dan. Yep, I'm having that, Ryan. Can I be cool at 50? Nearly 51?
There is no age limit to being cool.
Is that right? Okay, cool. Well, I'll say that. Hey, but there you go. Don't think you get specific Celtic FC lessons, Tony. Unfortunately, no. I usually just dish the Celtic FC lessons out. I try to. Colin McGinnis, can you have the wardrobe, the infamous wardrobe? Magic. 52 minutes, Ryan. Excellent. And to think we had a conversation prior to coming on saying, what are we going to talk about today? Yeah.
Celtic there's always something to talk about with Celtic.
Never disappoint us. The community never disappoint us. Thank you so much. I'm about to write out some lines today. Maybe even educational ones and some good ones, bad ones, and whatever. Wouldn't say ugly ones, but Helen Feek's great chat. Thank you so much. Thanks for your question, guys. Wolves are pulled out of the Celtic friendly in South Korea. Remains to be seen if Celtic are going to complete that leg of the tour. So Japan and South Korea are still on. Hopefully Celtic will make a comment on that, Ryan. You'll be all over that when it does come out. And we look forward to the fixtures tomorrow, guys. See who we get. See who Celtic are handing a lesson out to on day one, eh? See what I did there, Ryan? We segue into the old teaching thing, eh? There you go. If that's the case, might get a lesson ourselves. You never know, eh? Yeah, never too young or too good to learn, Ryan. That's what I say. Always, always, always. Fantastic show, legend, says Kaiser. Thank you very much, Kaiser. That's very, very kind. Ryan, thank you for your contribution today. First class as always. Guys, thank you so much for your questions and answers. We sometimes go off piece, don't we, and take a wee kind of left turn now and again. But hey, there you go. I'll talk to you about my teaching escapades one day and give you the lowdown in full. It's worth hearing. But there you go. This is why I'm back here. But hey, there you go. Brilliant, Tony and Ryan, says Kirsty. Thank you very much, David Ferguson. Thanks, Mr. Haggerty. Stop it, David. I'm not having that. Always Tony. And if you've known me for a long time, then you would call me Ants. That's my nickname from a young boy. I got Ants, and then before I worked in CNA in East Kilbride at 17 years of age, I became Tony. There you go. There you have it. Guys, thank you so much. We'll see you on Friday, Fixtures Day. Can't wait for that. If you've enjoyed today, then why not take out a subscription? Ticker tape running along the bottom tells you what to do. Subscribe to the Celtic Way website and support top quality football journalism covering the club you love. And you visit www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. That's www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Hit that button. And also, guys, go onto the Twitter, Celtic Way Twitter, retweet and follow, and you could win the Celtic away jersey. It ends today, and at some point, I believe I'll be in touch to tell you what size and all that, and you can give me your size, and I'll tell you you've won. But that's what you do. Retweet and follow on the Celtic Twitter site, and you could win the Celtic away jersey, the black number, which is a cracking top. So take care. 420 somewhere, big ants. I was always wee ants. I was always a wee guy. There you go. David Fair is going to leave an apple on my desk. As long as it's peeled, I'm fine. Can't even do my apple skin. Pete McGee, great show, lads. Hail, hail, legends. Thank you so much. Sean Gregg, bye everyone. Keep smiling. Take care. Ryan, thank you. Guys, thanks for your questions. See you tomorrow. Fixtures Day. Can't wait. Bring it on.